All right. Good morning, comeback kids. I am here with you today, and we are going to go over what our lesson is. If you recall, last week we finished filling out the 3 topics for our organizational plan with our clarifying statement, quote, personal example or story, details, and I reminded you that we were going to begin working on our openings today. We're also going to work on our transition words. So those are the 2 topics that we'll be working on this week. Let's start by talking about our openings. Now, I know you guys have been writing essays for a long time now, and you've probably written many different openings. So let's take a look and let's think about how we write our opening. Now, a lot of times we get into a routine because we've written so many, and we start by telling the reader what topic we'll be talking about, and we give them the 3 points we'll discuss. It gets kind of boring, right? And some of us, like me, you may really struggle with how to get started. Like you have all your ideas and you know what you want to say, but that first couple sentences, it is so hard to figure out what to put on the paper. So today we're going to talk about how we can write creative openings that will hook the reader's attention and help us be more interested in our own writing as well. So we really want to focus on the types of openings that we're using and why. So I wanted to show you guys, you can see on your screens, I've got some information here. So we're talking first about the different types of openings, and you can see on our tree map here, it says expository to explain why openings. So right now, we are explaining our opinions, and that's why it says explaining why. So we're explaining our opinions, and we're talking about the types of openings. You can see on the left-hand side of our tree map, our, our subtopic is patterned, predictable, boring. So these are examples of the types of openings you see most often in a student's work. And I admit, I often do the same thing, and it's something I'm working on really hard. So let's look at the first example of a boring opening. You can read along with me. It says, I think Saturday is the best day of the week. I like it because I get to sleep late, play with friends, and go to the mall. Now, many of you have probably written something similar to this. We start out with our thesis statement, our main idea. Hey, this is my topic, reader, and this is what I'm going to talk about. We go into our 3-pronged thesis, right? Because we have 3 body paragraphs, so we want to make sure we mention each of those topics. And this opening does that perfectly. It follows that pattern. It's very predictable, and it can be a little bit boring. So let me show you an example of another one that is on the same topic and does almost the same thing, but it's a little bit less predictable, which makes it more interesting. So read along with me over here where it says more interesting on the right of our tree map. We're going to look at this branch and the very first subtopic. So let's take a look. It says the countdown begins. Only 2 more days until Saturday. No school, no homework, and lots of fun. Okay, now I feel that it's justified to say that this opening is more interesting than the first one. It gave me the same information, right? Now that I've read it, I know my topic is Saturday. I know that the writer likes Saturdays, and I have my 3 ideas for why they like Saturdays. But they didn't say, hi, my name is Susan, and I'm going to tell you why I feel Saturday is the best day of the week, right? Because that is a very boring, predictable way to do it. So you notice that they started with some kind of an interesting fact to catch our attention. The countdown begins. So the reader is going, why are we counting down? Countdowns are kind of fun, right? So it gets our attention and it helps draw our interest. So that's why we're working hard to kind of change up our openings and make them more fun. Plus, as a writer, I would enjoy writing this more interesting one quite a bit more, this one on the right. So let's look at one other example. So if we're looking over here on the left, if you see my cursor moving, we're going to read this second example of a patterned opening. So let's take a look. Please read along with me. My mother is my hero because she works hard, helps me with my schoolwork, and is a volunteer at the hospital. Okay, so sentence one tells me my topic. My mother is my hero, and it gives me my 3 prongs, right? Because, and then I explain the 3 reasons I feel she's my hero. So this is a solid opening. It does what we need it to, but it's really kind of boring. It feels like a math formula where you're just plugging in the pieces, right? It's not exciting. So let's look at a way to make it more interesting. So let's take a look on the right. If you'll read the example with me, she may look like any other mom, but she is not like anyone you know. My mom is my hero because she exceeds all expectations of what a mom should do. All right. Did that one seem a little more exciting to you? Yeah, I thought so too. I like that first sentence because it presents an interesting fact, but it does it in a way that makes it sound fun and exciting rather than just stating my mom is my hero. It kind of turns that around, right? And so you're giving a reason or an example why your mom is your hero because she doesn't look like any other mom, right? It kind of creates some interest. Excellent. So ladies and gentlemen, now that we've seen some reasons for why would we change up how we write it, and we've seen some examples of interesting pieces, let's take a look at different strategies we can use. There are a number of different strategies. We're going to talk about 6 strategies today that will help us to write a more exciting and interesting opening, something that we'll enjoy as well as our readers. Okay, hang on. I'm getting there, guys. Sorry. Technical challenge. There we go. All right. So we're going to talk about types of openings, when we're explaining our opinions. So that's why up here it says types of expository writing to explain why. Let me get my cursor back over here so you guys can see it. All right. So we're talking about types of expository writing to explain why openings. Excellent. And they've given us a prompt. So if you've forgotten, the prompt is the question we're trying to answer. So this is just an example for you. So our example topic is everyone should learn how to read. Explain why learning to read is important. It is important. Yes, it is, right? Okay. So now we're going to see there are 6. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, so we've got 6 on our list. I counted correctly. Yay, thank you. So we've got 6 examples of strategies we can use to make our openings more interesting. Now, this is for that first sentence, right? That one that it's just, oh, I can't, what do I say? How do I start it? This is for that sentence. So let's take a look at our first strategy. I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Bear with me, guys, just a few moments. I am trying here. There we go. Okay. That's a little bit easier to read, huh? All right. So we're taking a look at our first strategy, rhetorical question. Okay. That word rhetorical, whoa, way confusing. What is that word? What does that even mean? Excellent question, and one I have asked a few times because I have to look this word up sometimes. It confuses me. It's so long and it's got this silent H in it, right? It's pronounced rhetorical. And a rhetorical question is when we ask a question and we really aren't expecting an answer For example, as a parent, yes, I admit, I have asked my kids, do you want a spanking? Now, clearly, there is no right answer to that question, right? You say, yes, I want a spanking. I don't think so. You say, no, I don't want a spanking. And the parent spanks you anyway, right? It's one of those parenting moments. We all make those crazy mistakes, right? It's a question, there's no, you're not expecting the other person to answer that question. So when I ask a rhetorical question, I'm simply posing a question to help my readers start thinking about my topic. So it's going to help focus their thoughts on where we want them to go. We're channeling their thoughts, right? Okay. So that's what a rhetorical question is. So let's take a look. We've got a couple examples of a rhetorical question on here. Remember, our topic was learning to read and why it's important. So we're trying to get people to think about that topic. So let's take a look at this first rhetorical question example. It says, can you imagine going through each day without being able to read any of the words around you? Oh, that would be rough, right? Absolutely. Okay. Is this a question that the writer expects the reader to answer? It's a rhetorical question. Does it give the reader a chance to focus their thoughts on the topic that we're going to discuss in our writing? Absolutely. Good. So that's why this is an example of a rhetorical question. You can see we have a second example on here that asks, how many times today have you used your ability to read? So we're asking a simple question. We know the reader's not going to answer it, but it's going to help them start to think about our topic. That's the first strategy. So asking a rhetorical question. All right, let's take a look at the second strategy. The second strategy is one we saw when we went over our examples a few minutes ago. So to present a startling fact. Now, this can be something you found in your readings. Oh, you guys, light bulb moment. You know how we're keeping those journals and those evidence logs, and we're writing down quotes from our reading? Oh, so a startling fact from something we read might be a good way to start our essay. You guys are genius, right? That's why you're doing those assignments so carefully and thoroughly. Yeah, all right, okay. So we've got an example here of some startling facts. You may or journal or your evidence log, or you might use your best friend Google, right? But we're gonna take a look at some startling facts here. All right, so the first one is a growing number of adults in the United States do not know how to read. Now, I love this fact because it gets my attention, but it's not super mathy, right? Because it's not like X% of blah, 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 right? This is a startling fact. It can be in my own words. So I don't have to quote something exactly if I don't want to. I like this. Okay. All right. Let's look at our second example for a startling fact. Even though we spend billions of dollars each year on special programs in our schools, we have students who do not know how to read. So this is another one where we've got a good piece of information to get the reader thinking. I'm not giving a specific number. I'm just giving them general information. Okay, so this is a startling fact. It's going to get their attention and help them focus on what we want them to think about. Excellent. All right, our third strategy is to quote a respected source. Again, you can use your journal and your evidence log. Yeah, brilliant that you've been doing such a thorough job with that, right? I know, I love it. All right. So in this case, you can see here, look at this first example. It says, according to President Obama, every child in America must learn to read. Now, here's what I like about this quote. It doesn't have parentheses because I'm not using President Obama's words. I'm putting what he said in my own words. That's still a quote. You're still invoking the authority of the president, right? The former president. And you're using his authority to present information. It's getting someone interested, right? Okay. But you don't have to quote it word for word and use quotation marks. All right, let's look at the second example of a quote. It says, although her books were written in Braille, Helen Keller said that when she learned to read, the whole world was opened up to her. I like this because this is an inspirational quote about an author, kind of an example of something you might find in your readings, right? But it's put
Yeah.
into the writer's own words. So it's quoting the idea, but it's not a word for word quote. So we can paraphrase. When we put it into our own words and we make it our own, but we give credit to where it came from, that's called paraphrasing. And then you don't have to use quotation marks. All right, excellent. So we've got an example of quoting a respected source. Let's take a look at our next example. Hang on just a second, guys, because I'm
Well, it just
not
depends
letting me
on,
close
you
in
have
our
to look
page.
at all the questions that you're
There
answering.
we go. Okay.
So if you can
So
have
now let's look
an
at the
answer
next
and
one.
justify
We
the
can use a
answers,
literary
because I'm thinking
device.
the one
Okay. I've got some feedback in the background because I've got some people
question
signed into our meeting and I can
different.
hear what's going on in your
Have a
classroom.
seat.
Could
We
you
can
please mute yourself if you're not asking a
discuss.
question? That would be very helpful. Thank you. Let me. Aha, excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so back to what we were doing. We just talked about the strategy of quoting a respected source to open up our essay. The next strategy we're going to discuss is using a literary device. Now, this is a brief lesson, and I don't have time to teach you guys all the different literary devices. This is near and dear to my heart. I love using literary devices, and this is something that you find embedded in your curriculum. If you're taking an English class, you're going to see quite a few literary devices being taught to you. You probably learned a bunch in the past but may not remember them or what they're called. Your teachers would delight in an opportunity to share some literary devices with you, so feel free to ask them. But a literary device is any kind of a tool or strategy that a writer would use, such as alliteration when you use similar beginning sounds over and over again. It might be an analogy where you compare two things that aren't similar. It might be, oh, come on, a simile. Remember when we use like and as to compare words? Yeah, okay, so those are examples of literary devices. And on our screen here, we've got an example. So let's take a look. And remember, our topic again was why it's important to learn to read. So our first one says, reading is the pathway to worlds beyond our own. So this would be an example of an analogy. We're comparing reading to a pathway. They're not really the same thing, but we're making a comparison. So that's an analogy, and that is a literary device. Excellent. So let's look at the next example. It is inviting, invigorating, and imperative. Reading is the most important skill that a person learns in school. This is an example of my favorite literary device, alliteration. Alliteration, for those of us who need a refresher, is when we use words with the same beginning sound over and over. So in this example, we had the word inviting, invigorating, and imperative. Those words all start with I, right? So that's an example of alliteration. Excellent. So we could use a literary device to help us start out our essays. Beautiful. Okay, second to last topic is making a general statement. So this isn't a statement that's specific only to you or only to one person, but something that can be generalized to an experience most people would have in common. Okay, so let's take a look. The first example says, every person in our country has the responsibility to learn how to read. So this is a general statement because I'm talking about everyone in our whole country, the general population of our country. Good. And it gives the reader the topic we're going to discuss, and it helps them focus their thoughts on that topic. Beautiful. Okay, let's look at the second example of making a general statement. It says, it is nearly impossible to go through a day in life without the need to use your reading skills. So this is a statement that can be true of anyone who reads it. That's what makes it a general statement. But it helps to give the reader an idea of our topic and help them narrow their thoughts to that focus. Beautiful. All right. One more strategy, ladies and gentlemen. Our final strategy is pose a challenging question. I like this particular strategy because I've used questions to start my writing in the past, but I want to make sure that the questions I'm using are actually interesting and thought-provoking, not have you ever read something, right? That would be kind of boring. We all know the answer to that. So let's take a look at what the interesting, challenging question might be. We've got two examples here. So let's look at the first one. It asks, would you be willing to devote some of your time to teaching an adult to read? So now my reader knows that I'm talking about reading and not just children and learning to read. So I'm giving my readers an opportunity to learn about what my topic is. And I'm asking them a question that's really designed to make them think. There's not a quick, short answer to it. So this is kind of similar to our first strategy when we asked a rhetorical question. Remember, though, that a rhetorical question we're not expecting an answer to. And this particular strategy, we're laying down a challenge. You can think of it almost as putting out a dare, daring your readers to do something. Right. Okay, let's look at one more example to help us get this idea firm in our heads. So our last example down here, if you'll follow my cursor, read along with me if you like, it says, if raising taxes for education would ensure better reading skills for all students, would you be willing to pay the price? Okay. So I'm challenging the reader to think about their answer to this. And I'm kind of like, if you've ever heard the expression throwing down the gauntlet, right? I'm throwing out a challenge. Will the reader accept that challenge? All right, so we have talked about 6 different strategies: a rhetorical question, presenting a startling fact, quoting a respected source, using a literary device, making a general statement, and posing a challenging question. If you haven't already, you may want to pause and take a moment to jot down notes about each of these 6 strategies, because yeah, I know. I mean, I am going to be asking you to use them, but I do have one more thing I'd like to go over with you guys, and let's see if I can find it. I wrote this last week. Nope, that's not it. Where did it go? Writing workshop. Yes, that's the grade sheet. Nope. Sorry, guys. I do have this. My bet is it's covered on my screen. Aha. No. Okay. Well, that is rather frustrating. I thought I had opened all the documents I needed today. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. I did. Here we go. Nope, that's transitions, isn't it? Yep. Okay. Nope, that's not the document I wanted. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, well, I had more examples that were specifically targeted to what we're doing, and I can't seem to locate them just at the moment. Let me try one more time. One more document. Nope, we can't open that file. Well, of course not. Okay. We have gone over each of the openings, and what I'd like to have you guys do, that's grade sheet. Okay. What I'd like to have each of you guys do on your own today, you're going to create an example of each of the 6, whoops, can't count, each of those 6 we're talking about openers, sorry. Each of those 6 openers, you're going to create one sentence on the topic you've been working on for each of those 6. And then you're going to choose the one you like best, and it will go in your organizational map. So let me take a look here. Okay, wait, here, there. Okay, so on your organizational map, up here at the top where the opening is, you're going to put the opening you select. So you're going to create 6 one-sentence openings. You're going to choose the one you like best and put it on your organizational map to use for your essay that you've been working on. So remember that your opening needs to be about the same topic that you've been working on for your entire organizational plan for this class. All right. Now, I wanted to do a quick blurb before we stop about transition words. If you look on your organizational plan, you see them. You've probably used transition words in your writing in the past. When we were in elementary school, our teachers asked us to do things like first, second, last, or first, next, last, or finally, right? Those were the transition words we were accustomed to using. But now that we're in high school, we want to use some more sophisticated transition words. So we have a spot on our organizational map where we can put the words or phrases we plan on using to help us really focus on what we're using. Now, I found an example that I really, really liked, and I also wanted to share with you. So this is an example that we can use. It shows, sorry guys, I got a little distracted there, too many things at once here. It shows us different categories of words. Now remember that each thinking map, if you were with us last semester, is used for a different type of thought or thought process. So comparing and contrasting would be our double bubble map. And we can use these transition words if we're comparing and contrasting. If we're putting things in chronological order, like we would for a sequence map, then these are transition words that have to do with sequence. These transition words have to do with defining and describing, like we would do in a circle map or a bubble map. So these are examples that we might use. All right. And then, oh, you know what, guys? I apologize. Some of these words are a little bit challenging to use as a transition word. Like this one just says adjectives. You might use an adjective to help you with your transition, but that wouldn't be a full transition. These are also examples of what we do on those maps. But you see here we've got sequence. That might be, that's what we do with a sequence map. And we put things in order. We create a timeline. We might use them for life cycles. Down here, you see these are the words that would be most likely be useful as transitions. So this first, next, after, time, those would be good transition words. And on this first subcategory, when we were talking about comparing and contrasting, these are all words that might be good transition words. So if we're looking at defining and describing, transition words might include things like feelings, descriptions of size, shape, colors, properties, qualities. So you might be able to use some of those as transition words. Let's look for cause and effect. Okay, so this would be our partial or complete multi-flow map. And we use that if you might be able to say, if this, then that. That could be a transition. Maybe because of, why, consequently. So these words are all good transition words that have to do with cause and effect. And lastly, we've got our main idea and details. So these are examples of transition words you might use for your main idea and details. Excellent. Now, if you had a moment and you might want to jot some of these down, you can copy down this tree map. If you're watching this as a recording, you can pause and take as much time as you need to, but I have one other example I'd like to share with you guys of transition words, and this is one I created today, so let me pop back over here. Let's see, sorry, it's going. Here we go, maps, my maps, here we go. Sorry guys, I had it up, but then I used something else. Okay, so here we go. I didn't label it yet. Okay. So these are types of transitions. Let me make it big so you can see all, or small so you can see all of it. Excellent. There we go. So types of transitions. So we might use a transition to clarify, to help the reader understand something better, and these are examples that would do that. Maybe you want to use a transition that would help you emphasize a point. So these words would do that. If you're contrasting or comparing, these are examples of words that would work for contrast and compare. If you're adding additional information to what you already told the reader, these phrases and words might help you. And if you're working on that last paragraph, you want to summarize, these are examples of phrases and words that might help you with that type of transition. So for today, for this week, what you're going to do is create one sample opener for each of the 6 strategies that we reviewed. So let's go back and take a look at those 6 strategies if we can here. All right, so you need a rhetorical question, a startling fact, quoting a quote from a respected source, a literary device of some kind, a general statement, and a challenging question about your topic. You're going to choose the one you like best to put on your organizational plan. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I would also like you to go back and fill in those transition words. So let's take a look. I want to make sure you guys know where this goes on your organizational plan. So I'm going to go back to that one. All right, hang on, guys, just one moment. Going back to my maps. Sorry, somewhat slow internet here. There we go, drafting, pre-writing. Okay, so now I want to see the organizational plan. Here we go. Okay, and I'm going to make this big so you can see the whole thing, or small so you can see the whole thing. There we go. All right, so this week you should complete your opening. Remember, you're going to have an example of all 6 strategies, and then you're going to choose the best one to put on your organizational plan. You're also going to select some transition words to put on your organizational plan. And that means that next week, we'll be working on strategies for our closing, and then we'll be actually ready to write our rough drafts. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this was helpful. If anyone has any questions, I'll be hanging out for a few minutes for those of us who are actually joined in live today so that you can ask any questions you have. I'm going to release you now to work on your writing. Remember, we've got our 6 examples of the strategies, right? One for each strategy. Pick our best one. It goes on the organizational plan in our opening. And then we need to select some thoughtfully curated transition words, right, to put on our organizational plan. So next week, I should see your awesome opening and your 3 transition words on your organizational plan, so you will be ready to plan your closing paragraph and begin drafting your rough draft. All right, come back, kids. I hope you've had a good time, and I will see you next week. Thank you.